For years now, one of the only things that Ben and I can consistently agree on is that the third generation of the Mazda RX-7, the FD chassis, is one of the most timeless and beautiful car designs of any vehicle ever. And so at the beginning of 2020, we decided it would be really cool if we each got an FD of our own. And for me, that was a difficult decision to make because it meant pushing off some of my more adult responsibilities and selling my 350Z, which I liked a lot and have only owned for about a year. But sacrifices had to be made, so here we are with my new to me Mazda RX-7. And guys, it's a Rotary.
First things first, this car was already somebody's baby. Unlike Thorne's project car, I bought an RX-7 that was modified and in good running condition. In fact, if you go way back in our video history, we filmed this car back in 2015. It used to belong to my buddy Dylan, who over the course of his 5 or 6 year ownership, single turbo swapped the car and made a decent chunk of horsepower with it, about 360 wheel.
If you've ever watched any of Build Ben's videos ever, then you'll know that buying a project car from somebody else can kind of be an anxiety-inducing experience because you never know what to trust, what was done right, and what might have been kind of fudged a little bit or had corners cut. In my case, luckily, I actually know the previous owner, and I have a lot of faith in Dylan's mechanical acumen. I think that he's a good mechanic, and I actually like a lot of the modifications that he's done to the car so far.
The BorgWarner S366 Turbo, while not cutting-edge tech by any means, makes good power and makes for a fun driving experience while eliminating the complexity of the twin-turbo setup. It's running a dual turbo smart wastegate setup with an external dump once boost spools up, which sounds pretty rowdy. The car is in really clean shape, which is nice to see on a vehicle from 1993. Dylan's taste with the front bumper, lip, and rear diffuser are all choice, in my opinion. Some changes were made that I'm not really a huge fan of. The power steering has been deleted, and I don't care how raw you want your cars to feel. Most cars should have power steering, especially if they came with it installed from the factory. The car is not only more of a bother to drive without it, it significantly hinders the fun factor and your ability to make small steering inputs in this case. Likewise, the factory cruise control has been removed in favor of an aftermarket steering wheel, and while I like the steering wheel, after my multiple cross-country trips in cars without cruise control, I'm at a point in my life where I feel like I deserve it.
But first things first, taste varies from person to person, and this wrap is not to my taste. So, the absolute first thing that we're gonna do before we do anything else is we're going to take this wrap off because underneath the car is Montego Blue, one of my absolute favorite car colors ever. Now, Dylan did tell me that the car has probably been resprayed at some point in the past, so I don't know actually how good the condition of the paint is, and I'm certain that some body panels, I know the bumper and maybe some of these spats are not color matched to the Montego Blue right now, but we've got to find out before we can fix it. So the first step is going up to Charlottesville, Virginia to Automotive Aesthetic so that they can take this wrap off and diagnose the condition of the paint.
So today we're working on Ben's RX-7. We're going to be removing the vinyl on it, which we're going to have to be very careful about because the car was repainted prior to installing the vinyl.
So basically, I'm learning a lot more about RX-7s as much as I already loved RX-7s. Getting to take it apart before removing a wrap is kind of cool actually. You get to see somewhat of how it was built.
So we got to take apart every piece that they took apart to remove wrap. Ben always brings me stupid jobs to work on.
My only real concern is adhesion. And when I talk about adhesion, I'm not talking about the adhesion of the film. I'm talking about the adhesion of the paint to the substrate. If you don't prep the surface properly, the primer is not going to adhere to the substrate, and the paint is not going to adhere to the primer properly. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to be very careful as we're pulling the vinyl off and pulling in a direction that's hopefully not going to lift paint.
Unfortunately, despite the best effort of the boys, the respray that lay beneath the wrap was beyond saving.
Like if you look at the areas that the paint's pulling on, it wasn't even scuffed. Like typically there's a process of stripping the paint and priming the substrate before you paint it so that you will have proper adhesion. In this situation, there isn't even like sanding marks from scuffing it, you know, so there's no way that this paint can adhere and bond to the surface. You know?
Some of you guys might be wondering, Ben, if you knew that paint might get pulled up, why did you have Automotive Aesthetic remove the vinyl? And the answer to that is paint was going to get pulled up one way or another, and the vinyl was not staying on the car. So literally better to pull the Band-Aid off now and quickly than to leave the vinyl on and not like the way that the car looks.
And the car is at least Montego blue, albeit partially, but we're making baby steps here. This is how the car will sit for the moment as I try and decide on paint or another wrap going forward. More on that later. For now, there are other concerns to address. Ben and I went to Fortune Auto in Richmond, Virginia to get suspension for our FDs, which you might have already seen in his K-Swap FD video series. And once again, I got to watch them hand build a set of Fortune 510 track street coilovers for me.
Essentially, every chassis is designed different. We plug in like formulas for where the suspension is in the car, but the main thing is real-world testing. So we'll put something in and theoretically it should work. And we also look at the OEM spring rates and the OEM shock valving, and we look at that. But I think really the way we mainly come to our end spring rates that we decide in valving is by a lot of just real-world testing. Comparative to like other manufacturers, we don't have that many applications, because when we have a new application that we release, we spend a lot of time on testing on that chassis. That then helps us arrive like, okay, maybe this spring rate's too stiff in the rear, or it's too snappy, or it's too understeery, or whatever.
Fortune has even begun laser etching designs into their products if a customer requests it. Naturally, I asked for ramen.
Awesome.
This is the very first mount that I've gotten for the RX7, and that's usually my modus operandi. Get a new car and put Fortunes on it, because they are absolutely one of the most useful mods that you can do. But yeah, super psyched to get my third set of 510s on my car. Let's go install these bad boys. Ugh.
Okay, so we have pulled the wrap off of the car and we now have the Fortune Auto 510 coilovers. We're here in our currently very unfinished gears and gasoline garage space that we picked up. So today we are going to be replacing the old tired coilovers on the RX7 with the fresh 510s. And actually I've got Brian and Steven, my buddies from Automotive Aesthetic, coming to help work on the car. So we're just gonna have kind of a fun afternoon, just kicking it, wrenching on the RX7. We swung by Advance Auto for one of the most crucial parts of any project, anti-seize, which we made sure to apply anywhere it would be beneficial, including on the shock bodies. these being my third set of Fortune 510s, I knew what to expect, but was still pleased to find that these track-oriented coilovers were simultaneously more plush on the street than the cheaper coils I took out. With the car on good suspension, now I started looking at wheel options, and being an Advan addict, I had to pick up a set of one of my dream wheels, the Advan RG3, a forged 6-spoke with a beautiful arching design. I was nervous to see if an 18x10 plus 35 would even fit on the car, especially in the front, but it worked. Now that we were addressing aesthetics, it was time to do something about the paint. In the future, I know that I would like to get the car painted, but at the moment, I'm not sure what color. Montego Blue is a strong contender, but there are a few other options I'm considering. In the latest episode of Other Ben's K-Swap FD series, he took his RX7 to Illusions Wraps in Fredericksburg, Virginia, where they wrapped his car in a lovely and temporary red. I was super impressed by this, and seeing it as an opportunity to try a more bold color, I pulled the bumper off the car, which was necessary to get it aligned on the new suspension, and went to Illusions. Because of the massive imperfections in my crappy paint job, the first step in the wrapping process was actually to sand the car.
First things we'll do if cars come in, they got paint chipping or clear coat peeling or anything like that, we go ahead and go around the entire car, sand everything, make sure everything's flat. There's two reasons we do that. One, of course, once you put the vinyl down, you'll end up seeing the outline of everywhere that the paint is chipped or peeling. And then two, when we put the vinyl down, sometimes we need to go up behind it and pull it up, kind of heat it up. If it's still chipping and stuff like that, when we go to pull it up, it actually pulls the paint up, and then we can't use that piece of vinyl anymore. So we'll go around the whole car, sand it, and then we'll give it a wash. Pull it in, wipe it all down with alcohol, and then we'll start wrapping.
We're here today with the other RX7. We finished all the prep work on it and we're wrapping it in 3M's Gloss Sunflower Yellow.
With Ben's RX7, the guys at Illusions showed that they're capable of wrapping a whole car in a day when they have to, but I wasn't on a deadline like that. The guys were able to take their time over the course of 3 days. And I'm really glad that they were able to take more time because the result was exactly what I was hoping for. I'm looking for spark plugs for a 1993 Mazda. So it's actually going to be 2 different spark plug part numbers.
So as any of our consistent viewers will know, Gears and Gasoline is sponsored by Advanced Auto Parts. They're a fantastic sponsor. They sponsor all our road trips and stuff like that. But I can honestly say we've never had a project that is a more natural fit than a Rotary RX7. If you know anything about Rotaries, they need a lot of general maintenance and preventative care. And so that is what we're going to do a little bit of today. We're gonna do an oil change, which need to happen pretty frequently on Rotaries, and we're gonna change spark plugs, which need to happen even more frequently. The interesting thing about RX7s and the Rotary engine is that they actually use two different types of spark plugs on the same engine. So you'll have one spark plug, which is your leading spark. This is providing the spark for the initial detonation. Just pull out the top spark plug on the back rotor, which is the trailing plug. And this is creating an additional secondary spark that kind of burns up the remaining mixture. So spark plugs, pretty easy. It took me like 10 or 15 minutes my first time ever doing them. So Rotary spark plugs, easy. Now oil lubricant capacity, 5.4 liters or about 5 imperial quarts. So oil change time.
This might be potentially controversial, but for the oil change, I'm going to be using Valvoline's VR1 10W30 synthetic racing oil. Back in the day, Mazda recommended against using synthetic oils, but there were exceptions even then, and oil technology has come a long ways, and after talking to the engineers at Valvoline, I feel pretty confident about running this stuff in the 13B. And now we have one left over, which is going to go right back here, right here in this little cubby back here. And every time I go to the gas station to fill up, I can top off the engine with that right there. So, contrary to Ben's build with his RX-7, obviously my car already runs, so as you can see, all the stuff we've been doing so far has just been aesthetic, and we are continuing with that trend with these taillights. So you won't be needing these anymore. This is what is going in. These are JDM Car Shop Glow aftermarket LED turn signals. So let's pop them in there and we can take a look at how they look.
All right, we've got one more mod that we're gonna do this afternoon to the car, and this is probably going to be the most controversial, but I like JDM stuff a whole lot, and one of the most exciting things about getting an FD for me was that I get to put all these JDM parts on it, and the most JDM by far, even more than those Car Shop Glow taillights, is this Feed GT02 wing. It's a big GT wing, obviously, and I know fully that with the current setup on the car, it is not going to be providing valuable downforce, and that's not the point. I just think it looks awesome. It will be making a bunch of downforce in the back, so the car will handle worse probably than it does right now. But that is okay. We're not taking it to the track. It's November right now, so I just really, really love Feed parts. I'm super excited. I think this is gonna look good on the car. And we'll just run it for fun right now, and then maybe later on we'll get a front splitter, all that stuff. But yeah, Feed wing, you might have seen like the Feed car on like Hot version and stuff from Japan, same deal. So yeah, this is my first GT wing I've ever owned.
This wing is adjustable on top and on the bottom, where, you know, the more you angle it sort of down, I guess the more downforce that it generates, and then the more level the wing is, the less it kind of interrupts the flow of air. Aerodynamics are extremely technical, and I'm not an expert. There's stuff about stall, speed, and angle, and
been a eventful day. Got the lights in, got the wing on, did some maintenance stuff. Just wanted to quickly log some thoughts and some emotions that I'm feeling. This is my dream car, and you know, I've wanted one for 10 years or something like that. And one of the possibly most expensive cars I've ever owned, most money in parts that I'm throwing at this car. And you know, I have it, like, I love this. I'm super into where the car's at. And all I feel is just tons of pressure and tons of stress. And I think it might be, you know, I'm feeling stressed to keep a car that I feel like is very nice. You know, anything that happens to it is like a tragedy. Like when we were mounting the wing, I put a little scratch in the wrap, and it's just a wrap. You know, it's supposed to be temporary, and it's still, you know, I was just going crazy. I also think that I'm worried that you guys will like it and that other FD owners will like it. You know, I've never really built a car with a lot of my own input into the aesthetics, the color, the aero mods, the wheels, you know, whatever. And this is what I want the car to be. So if you don't like it, you know, it's not like I didn't get a chance to express myself. This is what I want it to be. I feel very exposed, right? If you told me that I could have this car just the way that it is, you know, with none of my investment in it, I would think, awesome, you know, that I will be happy. And now I've invested in it, and I just feel stressed. And, you know, I will feel happy. And I'm not ungrateful that I had the opportunity to own this, but I feel a lot of pressure. I need to worry less about what other people think, and remember that this is all just for fun. You know what I mean? If it burned down, you know, monetarily, you know, hopefully insurance would cover it, but it's just a car. It's just for fun, and I'm done talking.